validation of the email and password if they are not okay, and then we can call the authenticate method when the user we ask the right username and then the password. If we don't get the user, if the authenticate method doesn't return anything, then the email and the password that was presented was not correct, and then we can also check if the user is active or not active, and then we will just return this. We return the user ID after the user logs in successfully. This is what we expect to see. Then the next thing is you can see here the token. So we only access the token, we access the token which is generated. The next thing is to implement a register serializer, which is almost the same as the login serializer, but at this point we are going to add more inputs. So the display role and then these other inputs we're going to add them, excluding the token, which will be the read-only items. They will not appear as inputs. Okay, so we call the create user and then with the validated data, which is in form of a hash map or dictionary. So the next thing is to implement the user serializer, which is so simple. We just check the email and the password and then we validate. Okay, that's it for now. That's all for the serializers. If you have any issue with serializers, just let me know on the comments and I will find a way to help you. Then let's go to the views. We're going to create the views. So we need to import all of this. This is how we implement the user login. The renderer classes will implement later on. And then what we are saying here, permission classes, I'm going to use allow any because this is a login endpoint, so we don't need to have it protected. Then we have the login serializer that we are going to use, which is this one. We're going to use this serializer, okay? And then we are checking if the data, we serializing the data and then checking if the data is valid. If it's not valid, we're going to raise an exception. Then we're going to return the data and then return the response to 200. Okay, this is the implementation of the login. And then the next thing is the registration, the user registration. The same thing, the permission classes is allow any, serializer class is register serializer. Okay, then this is the implementation. This is a post method. This is only what we need, and we have added all of this. And then we're serializing these items and then checking if they are valid. If they are valid, we are going to have. So this save method in this serializer is because of the create method. So if you just say serializer.save, it will call the create method and then it will save this object. Then we return the response and then we return the status 2 or 1 created. If we have an error, we return 400 bad requests. That's where we are. And next thing what I did was to add the URLs. These are the URLs which I added based on the views that I created. And then after that, when I finished this, I went to core URLs. So these URLs, which is close to go there and then make sure you import include, and then we're going to add this. We're going to add this URL. We're going to add this URL. Okay. So this URL we're going to call it auth, and then we reference. We just do this way. Okay, so that we can access the endpoint. All right. So I think there's no issue if you added all of this. Let's go to settings.py file and then confirm. So if you added this auth user model, that's okay. And you added REST framework, you added users, and then you added this. Okay, make sure that you added this users authentication backends. Okay, make sure you added this folder authentication, then you put init.py file. If you don't add this init.py file, it will not work. this module will not be recognized. Then you create also the backends.py file. Okay, guys, this this is just basically the middleware which handles JWT authentication. Okay, then if you have added that this exception folder, you can just leave it for now, and then in the admin side, register the user model. Okay, and then make sure you have created a managers.py file, which is very important. All right, guys, so this looks good. And then the models, I expect you to have implemented the models like this. And then also renderers, you don't need to implement at the moment because this current tutorial we are not using the renderers. The serializers, I expect you to have the serializers like this to have been implemented. Then also add the URLs, and then the views. These are the views, guys. We expect you to have the views like this. We have the login view, and then we have the register view. Then lastly, you must have the following requirements. These are the dependencies that you need. So you need to run this, make migrations. For me, I already ran it, and then you run migrate to apply the migrations to the database. I already done that. So my code looks good. It's working as expected. So the next thing you're going to do, guys, I remember I had written some tests. So this is a few tests which I did. I import all of these guys, and then also the JWT secret. I created a function. Okay, decoded JWT. I created this function to decode the tokens, and then also this is the first test case that I created. First of all, what I'm doing is I'm inheriting any properties of test case, and also I've implemented a setup. So this setups is just for preparing what I need so that I can make a request for any test that I create here. So I have used the API client. You can learn about this more when you go to the REST framework documentation. Since this is a register endpoint, we don't need to have headers added, so I just added an empty header. I just called the client, and then I made sure that the credentials are like this. It's just an empty header, so I expect that it will not bring any issues because our authentication middleware handles that. Now we have created our first test. This is the first test, which is test valid credentials. So response equals to self.client.post. So we are making a post request using this API client, and then we are using the reverse. Is really handy so that we can access the endpoint that we want. We access the URLs using reverse by accessing the names. So the app and then the URL name. So you just go back to here and then reverse user colon register. This is how we get the endpoint of interest. And then this is the payload. The payload is just the data that we sent when the user is registering. I've just printed out here to see the response JSON, and I expect the response.status code to be 2201 created, and I expect the data that has been is response.json to include token key. Okay, so let us run these tests. So guys, the error we were getting was this. So this must be a string, not a list. So we added a string, right? Like this, so that we don't get this unhashable type list. So this is the error that we were getting. Save this. So guys, remember to always implement this kind of trying to catch the error so that you can know what error you're getting, especially with your serializers. Okay, algorithm not supported, not implemented error. So is this token? Okay, let's look at the algorithm. Okay, instead of using the ID self.pk, let me just say pk. So algorithm HS 256. There you go, guys. We have our test passing. Now let's look at the response. This is the response, and then we have the token. Okay, let's go back to the tests. And this is 256, not 254. We're going to copy all of this. But first, let's create our user, self.user, user.objects.create, username equals test user, email test@test.com. So let us set the password, self.user.set password, self.user.save. Okay, dev test user login, valid credentials, response equals client dot self dot client reverse. This is a string, and then we add the post data. This is what we are going to post. Then we add user ID, self.user.id. Let us test this login endpoint. Let's look at how the response looks like. So this is the response ID. ID is decoded token. This is what we expect, guys. Getting that token, we decode it, and then we get the ID. That's how this should be, and this should work as expected. So what we are doing in this test case, we are decoding the token that we get from the response, and then get the decoded user ID by adding an ID. We just access by ID. Okay, so let us just check this in action. All right, so the UUIDs are the same. They are the same. So I think this one should be changed to string. so that our tests will be successful. Okay, our test is complete. Okay guys, that's it. That's how you implement the login endpoint and the register endpoint. If you have any questions, don't forget to mention them on the comments. And also, if you have anything that you need to be clarified, just don't forget to mention it down below the comments. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next video.